I was just saying how wrong it was for her introduction to be longer than mine.
But
I don't think that's
But
right.
I paid her
And we were
for
laughing.
that. So we were laughing. I have to tell you, I mean, nobody in my life makes me laugh harder than this man, and he had me hysterical back there. So that's what we've come on to greet
She gets
all
a
of you.
Tony for going to the store.
So now you get a picture of my life with him. So anyway, we're here tonight because one of the things that Jeffrey and I talked about before all of this was really just we wanted to invite you in to have a conversation with us or to hear our conversation with each other. This is not some formal interview. This is not going to be like that. This is going to be about this extraordinary book. And I have to say, if you have not read it yet, you are in for an enormous treat. I said to Jeffrey, I read it first. He had it sent to me, and I read it, and he said, would you write a blurb for the book? And I said I would, and he said, I got the blurb back, it's longer than the book. And I said, that's because I have so much to say about it. And what I also want to say about it is that I think it's one of the most important books that I have ever read. I thought I was on a plane this weekend, and I thought I would just sort of open it and read it, a few pieces here and there. And I started reading it again, and I couldn't put it down. I read it all the way through again. This is not a book that is only a memoir, a memory piece. It is an acting book. It is a self-awareness. Now, notice I didn't say self-help book. It is a self-awareness book. This man, my friend for over 40 years, is aware of himself and his world more and discovers more about himself than just about anybody that I know. I thought I knew him. I did not know him until I read this book. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about who he is and why I and so many people love and adore him. Before we start, I would like it if you would just, God, I love you so much. I do, it's really true. And we just finished the 4th season of Transparent at... And I haven't seen him for 2 weeks, so I was going into withdrawal. So this is really good that you're all here with us tonight. If you would be so kind as to read something first before we begin.
Really?
If you want to begin with that.
Is that what you want me to do?
I would like you to do that, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
You guys okay with that? What are you going to say, no? That's interesting. I did nice neck work here. Right in here that I like.
Just
Nice.
like we love
Very
Photoshop.
good. Yeah, if it could only be like that. Okay. This is just a very uncorrected proof.
Yes.
My goodness. I'll read from Red Bow Tie.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Red Bow Tie. I grew up. I've never read this. So we're sharing this.
You never read this alone?
Well, I read it on the. I read it on the. What do you call it? The audio. But I
Yeah,
never
right.
read this. I mean, I've never done this. My goodness. You know, the whole thing I was thinking about is how used I am to certain things, but I'm not used to this. This is a whole other thing, and it's kind of fun. Being this kind of nervous. It's maybe it's excited. I don't know. It'd be funny if I just got up and left.
Which we actually tried to do because we were going in the wrong direction.
way.
Yeah, they wanted us to.
I grew up in San Francisco, a magical place. Our first house was on 31st Street, which meant we were 31 blocks and change from the Pacific Ocean. It was foggy every morning, clearer, overcast, and 60 degrees every afternoon, and the fog rolled back in on the dot at 5 p.m. The fog was moody and lovely and taught me to love inclement weather. That's why Los Angeles and I never got along. It's sunny all the time. I am the Jewish son of Russian-Hungarian parents. I can't have sunny all the time. My maternal grandparents, Yassel and Gertrude Salzberg, lived nearby, and my grandmother would sometimes babysit for me when my parents were away. She would bring her homemade pickles, dill, half-sour, garlic. She brought matzah and gefilte fish and herring. One time, she brought me this wonderful cocoa. She put a pot of milk on the stove. She spooned in the cocoa and a little sugar and stirred and stirred and stirred. When it was ready, she handed me a mug of it. Bliss. That same weekend, she brought me a gift, a red bow tie. To this day, I have absolutely no idea why. It was big and shiny, and I loved it. My parents used to take me out to dinner with them. We'd get dressed up, me in my charcoal suit, white shirt, and that big, beautiful red bow tie. We would eat at Joe's of Westlake and order the legendary Joe's special, scrambled eggs, ground meat, and spinach. But before we ate, my parents liked to have a drink at the bar in the lounge. I wasn't allowed to sit at the bar, so I would sit at a table by myself near the piano player, sipping my Shirley Temple. I loved to watch people, study their mannerisms and their gestures. It was as good as reading a book, a dark book with piano music and cigarette smoke. My parents couldn't get over the fact that I never complained that we didn't eat until 9 p.m. People would come up to me and say, "Hello, little boy, what a beautiful bow tie." And get this, they would give me money. Not pennies, not quarters, not half dollars. They gave me dollar bills. Some sat down to talk to me and tell me their stories. I became used to the smell of alcohol on their breath. One doctor sat down with me and told me about a patient he had lost that day. He had a martini with 2 olives in his hand and tears in his eyes. I couldn't get over all the attention, the stories, the sharing. I knew it wasn't because of me, it was because of it. The bow tie had magical power. This red, glittery thing made me feel confident and wise. I felt connected, I felt powerful, I felt helpful, I felt safe. I took that feeling with me when I walked to school or around my neighborhood. I felt it when my mom got me a new pair of Keds, and I would run around the neighborhood feeling like I was the fastest creature on earth. I remember thinking, this is the fastest I will ever be, ever. I even woke my parents up early one morning to tell them just that. They were unimpressed. I used to go to the soapbox derby races with my brother and my father every weekend. They were held outside the Harding Park golf course not far from our house. My brother and dad and I would watch the kids get in their go-karts at the top of the hill, and I was able to tell which one would win just by how the driver sat in the car. During each and every race, I would guess the winner, and I got it right every time. People started to place bets based on my guesses. Which one, son? People were making money on my say-so, including my dad and my brother. I was invincible. And then one night, when I was about 8 years old, I was getting dressed in my little suit to go to Joe's of Westlake, and I could not find my red bow tie. I searched and I searched, but no red bow tie. I went to my mother to see if she knew where it was. Come on, Jeffrey, we're late. I can't find my red bow tie. What red bow tie? My red bow tie, the one Grandma gave me. Grandma never gave you. I wear a red bow tie. I always wear a red bow tie. There is no red bow tie. You never had a red bow tie. I was speechless. You have a small blue bow tie, she said. That's the only one you have. Go put it on and hurry. I went to my room, I got the little blue bow tie, and we went to Joe's. I sat with my Shirley Temple near the piano player as usual, but nobody talked to me. No one approached. Nobody gave me money. Nobody sat down and told me their story. Even the piano player was silent. I began to feel an unfamiliar sensation in the middle of my chest. Fear. My connection to the world was gone. My red bow tie was gone. Not only gone, it may have never existed. Now, when we went to the soapbox derby, I was clueless about who would win. And when I walked around the neighborhood, I was afraid. I would spend the rest of my life looking for that red bow tie, trying to connect to that feeling it gave me, that access, that magic. I sometimes struggle to find it, and on occasion I do, and in the most unexpected places, on stage, on a set, in a grocery store, behind the wheel of a car in a strange town, in a book, as a sidekick, as twin brothers, and, to no one's surprise, more than mine, as a woman. What are you crying?
Yes. I did this on the plane, and the man opposite me looked at me, and he had no idea what I was responding to. And what I love about this is that
It would be funny if somebody just came out and gave you another Tony.
Are they here?
No.
Oh.
Maybe.
The point of that, and why I thought it was so important to have Jeffrey read that, is because I know that
That scared the hell out of me. You know, every actor's fear is that they're going to finally come and go like this and like get
Bye.
off, you know. That was something. All right.
I thought it was the Tony.
No.
Anyway, but the point of that I think is so important is that everybody in this room
Yeah, you could hear it. Yeah.
has
A red bow tie.
a red bow tie, and it disappeared at one point in time. And we don't know how it got lost or where it got lost. But you also say in here, you say, there were places where you have found it again. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the places and the times and the moments that you have found it. And one of the things that you always say when you teach is, and Jeffrey's an extraordinary teacher. I don't know how many of you know that, but he is. And that's the other thing that he does that makes him different than a whole lot of other people. But you say that to your students, you say to them, where were you born? Tell me about your home life, and tell me about your parents. So,
Oh, you're asking me?
I am.
I was born in San Francisco in 1944, July the 8th. Same date as Angelica Houston. Did you know that?
No.
The same birthday. What is that?
It's the Tony. Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you doing? Oh my God. It's the strangest evening. People come out. It's like paper being shoved and everything.
No more surprises. This is a little unnerving.
I was born, and Barney and Eileen,
Right.
And 31st Avenue. What was the other question?
I said, what was your home life like? And tell me about your parents and your brother and your sister.
They were great. They're second generation. Mom's side was Russian. Dad's side was Hungarian or Prussian or whatever that line was. It kept changing because it kept getting, you know. People ask me if I had a happy childhood. I said I'm the Jewish son of Russian-Hungarian parents. That's not even on the menu. It's not part of the deal. But actually, they were great. They were young. They were beautiful. He looked like Cesar. Remember Cesar Romero?
Oh my God.
Remember
yes.
that with the mustache? And she was gorgeous. She looked she had a little lighter skin than Lena Horne. She was a beauty. And they were just young and in love. And I remember Larry and I, my brother, they would come home and he would come home from work and they would have cocktails. They would have old fashions with the bitter herbs and the whole Angostura, whatever, and the two maraschino cherries, one for them and one for us. And they would put on the radio, and he would put on his jacket, and they would dance. And I remember that. I'm on the edge of tears, by the way. I remember that being such a magical time. Barney and Eileen, and they would dance, and he would do this thing when he would dance. He'd do that lip thing. But he was so cool. And he was 6'3". He was a boxer, movie star handsome, and they were glorious, and they were great dancers. And he would dip her, and we would applaud and that whole thing. Yeah.
And then things turned.
And then, like Joseph Heller's, as I say in the book, that's new. I've been saying that all day, as I say in the book. I've never said that in my life. Then, like all things, something happened, and I go into the book. I don't know quite what it was, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't dancing, and things got not so warm and fuzzy. How far do you want to go into this?
As far as you want to take it,
as far as I want to go
sweetie,
right now.
That's
It got strange, and it got. Ask me something else.
tense. It got,
Yeah.
well, what it did though was it drew you out of the house and into another place.
Yeah.
There are two places that Jeffrey talks about in the book that are really powerful. His impulse and instinct and intuition that I think is so valuable and so important. And out of that episode and the relationship with the parents came this intuition to move towards something.
Well, I lived across the street. Actually, there were two places. There was things got tense a little. It wasn't warm and fuzzy, and you have to, as a kid, you have to, sometimes have to seek more comfortable places, more safe places, as you see. And I found this public library. It was on Commodore Sloat, and it was a public library that I would ask my dad to go to, and I would go there every night or after school. And then the other place was I took a walk down Holloway Drive one day, and I went to San Francisco State College, and I found this little theater.
And how old were you at that?
I was 10, 11, and I walked in, and there was this little theater. I can see it just now, and I looked around. This 150-seat theater, if that, and there were these two 90-year-old actors, 17, and they were rehearsing. I thought a Lillian Hellman play, Watch on the Rhine. I may be wrong, but the thing is, and they were talking in this sort of elevated way. But what they did is, and they were soldiers, and there was this rock, but what they did was they stopped, and they would talk about it, and then they would do it again, and it got better, and then they would stop, and then they would talk about it, and it got better. Mm-hmm. And I went, wait a second, you can stop, and you can talk about it, and you can work on it, and it will get better. And I said, whatever they're doing, I want to do. So I would move up each time I came. I went day after day after day and just kept watching them. And, I was a little kid. I had a bilateral lisp. I talked like this. I was overweight. My hair was slicked. I was a mess. But somehow, and I finally got in the second or third row, and they stopped one day and they said, would you want to help us strike the set? And I said, sure, I'd love to. And what does strike the set mean? And they said, well, you help us with all the furniture. So I went and got this rock. And they said, take that off the stage. And I said, well, and I lifted, it was made out of celastic. And I lifted it over my head. And I just burst into tears because it was so light and magical and handable. Mm. And I remember saying, whatever just happened, I want to seek it for the rest of my life. And it was so powerful. And it's one of the inspirations. I always think of that. So there was the dancing, and the dipping, and there was the rock. And it's sort of that moment that I kept. But there was so much about the civility of the stage. I just had it when we were off stage.
Did you?
Yeah, when we were sitting there, I went, home. Mm. Isn't that odd? Backstage with the thing, you go, Right. And I've always had that feeling. And it has this age to it. And it always has comforted me. And it always feels safe.
And the home that
you want to feel when you come here. That's why when you're on a set and I'm on a set with you, you always create a feeling of home and safety, and that, oh, this is right and this is where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when you moved forward into that world, you had some great teachers and some great mentors and people who really took you under their wing.
Yeah.
So opposite to what was going on in the family, going on in the home, that kind of unsettled shift from something that had been lovely and grand and great and then into not so much. Talk about those people who mentored
Well, you have to understand that like, did you get that thing I sent to you about Carnegie, by the way? Did you see that? Oh, I just sent a glowing thing about you for Carnegie Tech. She gets awards now. She's a thing where she gets awards.
Just 'cause
Not
I'm
only
old.
Tony's, but I did a thing for you that you'll be
Oh,
very...
thanks, honey.
You're welcome. Yeah, I had a great teacher at San Francisco State, a guy named Jack Cook. I think one of the secrets, this is already making me feel uncomfortable, but I think the big secret that you find is try to find people who get you, or you get. And I think we spent a great deal of time. I certainly spent it as a young actor. There would be 15 people who wanted you in the room. And there would be the one person who didn't want you. And I spent my entire life trying to please that one person rather than those 15 people. And what you have to do is you have to shift. That's the big lesson I had to learn is because I would always focus on that one person. So there was a number of students, teachers, and one of them was Dale Mackley at San Francisco State, and the other one was Jack Cook, who got me and really lifted me up and really believed in me. And, those are the guys.
Who was the one who some girl came up to him, Jeffrey, and said, Jeffrey's not doing it right?
There was a guy named Mr. Pravatoni, and I was in a Mr. Prav. And literally I was doing a play called Elmer Across the Footlights. And we were doing a thing, and all of a sudden I just took off and started doing this thing, and I started going off script and doing that. And thank you for saying that. And it was at Aptos Junior High School, and this woman, the young lady, walked down and said, Mr. Prav, Jeffrey's not doing it right. And from a darkened theater much like this, I heard, leave him alone, he knows what he's doing. And literally, it was the first time anyone had ever said that to me. Ever. And I went, I do know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And it's so funny because those are the people, those teachers are the people who just take you all the way through your life. And that sometimes you have to remember, I know what I'm doing, don't I?
Right. But that didn't stop you from trying to please the one person in the room.
No.
Because when we're on the set, you know what you're doing. But you also.
I wouldn't get crazy about it. Yeah.
But you have captured again that kind of freedom that you had, that you just talked about, and you start going, and we all start going together, and it becomes this thing, this kind of freedom that you had from before, where you knew what you were doing.
There was an important teacher in my life. First of all, we're on a set with Jill Soloway.
Right.
And Jill Soloway is one of the true alchemists in this world. And she knows how to make that pot boil, and it is the safest set I've ever been on. And she is a true alchemist in the real magical sense of the word. But there was a guy, Gary Shandling.
Right.
And Gary, when I saw It's a Gary Shandling Show, I remember saying, whatever he's doing is what I think comedy is. And I have been told to do it another way, but I've always thought it was that way. And I remember him coming out and saying, hi, I'm Gary. and where this is, and I'm going to go pee now, and they're going to do this, the credit rolls, and they started. It's a Gary Shandling show. This is the Alan Zweibel, and he wrote it in an elevator, by the way,
Oh my
in
God.
40 floors. They wrote that song. Hey, this is the Gary Shandling show. By the time they hit the main floor, they had written the song.
Jesus.
And he is the one who took me to school on that, the looseness of that, the moment to moment of that, the play of that, the sort of how I always thought it, the make the mistake, go for the mistake, do it wrong, do it badly, all of that. He just turned it on its head, and I went, that's it.
Right.
Yeah, and I was able to have 7 years of that. And that sort of became, he loved mistakes. He loved error. He loved when you tripped. He waited for the trip. He waited for the, for that. And I always thought, that's what I need. That's what.
Well, the permission, that kind of safety.
Yeah.
Do you was it Gary who really prepped you for Jill? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
To play.
Yeah,
to
that was.
play more?
I was going one way, and then I went. I mean, I remember the audition that I did for him. Gary Shandling read with me, and I remember the moment in the audition where there's about a half a dozen times in your life where you go, I know who that is, and I knew who Hank was, same way as thought I knew who Maura was, and you go, there I am, I'm there. And he was just an amazing, he did a real interesting thing. When you finished a scene, he would go like that to you. And that meant, are you okay? You okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I've never had that in my life. In my life, I've never had that.
You mean someone checking with you to
Are
see
you
if
all
you're
right?
all right?
Are you okay? Are you happy? Are you happy? Arthur Penn was like that when we did Sly Fox with George C. Scott. And those are the people you want to. On the other hand, in my life, I got into a place where it wasn't that, where I have a chapter in the book called Enthrall, when you get enthralled. And that's where I think where you either have those people who support you, and I have them in the audience, like I have my manager and my Joni Burstein and my agent Leslie Siebert. They get me. They're also your reps,
Right.
and that's why we're here. And there's that. But I have gotten into the other thing where I remember I got enthralled to a craft service man. I was doing Max Headroom. And I had, get this, one person applause, that's great. This guy, he would serve the chili like this. This is what a horrible person was. He would, like that. And for some reason, I made him important. And I would do a take, and I could see him in back of the camera, and he would go. I never told you this. And
Oh,
I said, I guess I want another take, and he would go. And I would do it again, and he would go. I guess I need another take, and he'd go. So I would do it, and he would go like that, and I said, that's the one. So you can get enthralled to the schmucks. That's the thing. And that's the. I mean, if I were to say nothing and I were to pass away in the next 5 minutes, that's it. That's the formula. Don't go with the schmucks. Get with the people who get you.
That's exactly
and
right.
stop trying to please the schmucks.
Right.
And
don't we all spend
right? It's the lesson. I spent so much of my career trying to please that person who was like that. And I realized I don't have to do that. And
when did you stop? When did you
I'll tell
realize
you
that?
exactly. Well, I was doing Hill Street Blues. Clap.
It's really good.
And I was running after, I used to run 10 miles a day afterwards, and I was running, and I was going over my lines. And I stopped because I realized I was running the lines of the scene I just shot. And I stopped, and I went, I either have to stop doing what I'm doing, or leave show business. Because this is not what the red bow tie is.
Ooh.
This has nothing to do with freedom. This is all about fear. And I said, make a choice right now. And that's when I stopped and I made a choice. And it's one of the biggest decisions I've ever made.
It's so interesting to hear you talk because you have these moments that are these key points in your life where you have done that.
Well, I have had so many students over the years, and this is really, I wrote the book for three reasons. One, my kids have no idea what I do for a living.
Right.
That's the main one, because my daughter Evie, as we were driving to flute class the other day, said to me, "What is it you do again?" And I went, so I better write a book. And then I actually had somebody say, "Are you anybody?" He was outside the Broadhurst Theater. He stopped, he said, "Are you anybody?" And I said, "No." And there was a longer pause before I said that. And then the third reason is I've taught for over 50 years, and I don't mean to sound boring, but 90% of my students have stopped. 90% of my students have stopped, and I mean actors that are 20 times better than I am.
But talk about the stopping and that thing that you talk about that I think is so important, which is it's the story you tell yourself that makes you stop.
I have a story. I think everybody has a story. I'm not the first one on the planet to say this. I'm borrowing here. But we all have a story. My story is my mom said less than kind things to me. And sometimes they, and she meant well. It wasn't, it was hard. And there's a Yiddish phrase, shtick dreck, and we heard that a lot. Shtick dreck was the hue and cry in that house.
Which means piece of shit.
They know.
Oh, do they?
If any audience knows what shtick dreck is, it's this audience. My Lord. Anyway, it means piece of shit. But it doesn't, and then my dad was shush, 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 shush. Don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. Don't say anything, Dad. I'm on in MASH with Alan Alda. Shh, don't say anything. Dad, I'm getting married. Shh, don't say anything. Don't even tell her. Don't. And so that's my story. So I call them the vultures who get up with me in the morning. There's shtick direct and there's shush, shush, shush. And that's your story. And you either take that story or you play another story. So everybody has a story. Right. I had a student who, her story, I actually have a very, I talk about it in my book. There's a very a young man who has a very famous brother. And his story is, I am the unsuccessful brother. Well, that's a story. And so you get an unsuccessful car, you get an unsuccessful house, you get an unsuccessful abdomen, you get unsuccessful hair, you get so that's that story. And so I always, and this is pompous, I don't mean to do this, but I had to really investigate. I had to counter my story. And so that's
what I thought was so important about it. And it's that's. You always dreamed about signing autographs. The teacher caught you in school.
Best wishes, Jeffrey Tambor.
In school.
That's all I did.
But
nice to see you. Good playing with you, Jeffrey Tambor. Good luck on the monkey bars, Jeffrey Tambor. Crazy. That's all I wanted to do.
And here you are. But that's the demonstration, right? But it's...
But that's not what this is about. This is about something else. And that's the big surprise.
That's right.
That's the big, because I can't wait to get to the red carpet.
Right.
I remember my first time on the red carpet. And I remember I went out on the red carpet and it was red. And I went out and I remember it was slightly soiled. And I remember looking at that, and then I got out there, and the people that, at the cameras, they were like this, and they literally put their cameras down. And I went, oh, that's not going to be nice. That's not nice. But I remember just recently, Kasha and I were coming home in the car, and she said, what's going on? And I said, I wish they would have told me. I wish I would have known that that's not the ball.
That's not it.
The ball is home. My kids, I have 5 kids. I have my daughter Molly, who's in her late 30s. She's 40. So cheap. And then my doctorate, my doctor Molly Tambor, professor of European history, brilliant. And then we go a couple of years and we have 12-year-old Gabriel, 10-year-old Evie, and 2 7s. And that's the ball. Right. But it takes you a while, it takes you a little while going back to the craft service guy.
Right.
And it takes you a while, to find that. And sometimes you never find it. I mean, and they have Evie and Eli and Hugo have a thing of when I'm sitting there and I'll be reading or we'll be watching anything, they have a thing of like getting into my lap and just going like that and taking their space.
Oh my God.
And that feeling in my abdomen and that whole thing, I go, why didn't they tell me that this is it? This is it. It's the whole thing.
There's nothing.
It's not best wishes. No. Have fun on the monkey bars.
Right.
Anyway, is that too much?
Or are you anybody? And the desperation to say, yes, I am.
Yeah.
I want to be somebody.
Yeah.
But the point I was making was that you stopped the story and you got here with the kids who you talk about as your teachers and as your mentors, and how you talk about how everything has changed for you. And I think that's what's important for people to know. It's the investigation. That's why I said at the very beginning, this is a...
But you know what saved my life, really,
what?
Honestly?
What?
Humor.
Talk about that, please.
I'll do what I want.
Okay, fine.
Where does this thing happen?
This is my life.
What does this happen? What is this? Talk about this. Who are you, Charlie Rose tonight?
I am.
I've never seen you like this. Talk about this. What's going on here?
Tell me
about
that. Well, actually, the thing I was going to say to you about it, one of the notes that I made, he said to me, don't have a lot of notes.
No.
So
I called her and I said, don't have a lot of notes.
He said,
let's just give him what we got and let's talk like how we talk. She's my dearest friend. I can tell her anything. She can tell me anything. I'm going to knock you senseless.
Okay, we got even closer this year in this 4th season, I think, than we have been before. I mean, we really shared some incredibly deep moments with each other.
Last year at this time, sitting in that chair, 1, 2, 3, 4, was a young man named Herb Hampshire, who is no longer with us, who was her friend and manager, who was her supporter. And I talked about him in my book because he's all about support and is what an artist needs. And I wanted to celebrate him tonight because he's all about, he made you, and we all have these people in our lives who support us. And you okay?
Mm-hmm, I'm here.
And I talk about him, but he was like Judith Light. And I remember she was doing a production of Wit on Broadway, Tony Award. And I remember we were going to a celebration of the thing called the Talk, right? That the Weinstein brothers were giving on the Statue of Liberty Island. And we were all waiting for our ferry. And then I looked over and there was Judith in this black gown, but her head was shaved for the role in Wit. But I didn't know that. I went, oh, Judith is very sick. And they were my drinking days. And so it was, Judith is very sick. But I remember next to her was Herb, and they were both staring out into the harbor. And there was this knight. Sorry, Jonathan. There was this knight sitting next to her, and I remember that. And that's always one of the images I go to as when I talk about support. You okay?
And this, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yep, thanks.
Good.
Okay.
But laughter.
Yeah.
I found out one of the things that I had to do to keep peace in that house is I found laughter. And if I went, if I can make them laugh, if I can get her to laugh, I'll have a little more time to think of what the fuck to do. And so I created humor. And I made her laugh. That was literally my mission. And it became I went, oh my God. I have time to think and to move and to things like that. And it became a life mode for me. And it's still true. I find that when I get very scared, I get very funny. Very funny. And that means that is my mode. And then all of a sudden it became a talent. But I think it's the key. It's certainly the key to our show, Transparent.
Absolutely.
We laugh at funerals and we cry eating barbecue.
Right.
You know
Exactly.
what I'm saying? But I think that is a very important thing.
I
And
think
what
that-
I tried to instill in the book.
And that's what I was saying. When I was on the plane, I would be laughing hysterically. I never laugh out loud at anything. I cannot help but laugh out loud in this book. And then the next second, I am weeping because of the poignancy and the tenderness of it. And it's like there are these things that you have said. You have these special phrases that I note that are like different things that you say. Like, the eyes are on you, which I want you to tell them about, or in the thrall. And I have a bunch of them.
The eyes are on you.
But you also have fuck 'em.
Fuck 'em.
But that's the balance of Jeffrey. That's what I'm trying to say, is that he has this, the sense of the way you talk about arrogance. And arrogance is actually to take up space. It is not the way we have all understood it, that it's not about, and you talk about confidence and all of those things, and these are all pieces of what has gone into making you this person that you have created yourself. You have become this person.
There was a waiter at the Great Greek in a restaurant in Los Angeles. And I walked in the restaurant one day and I said, I'd like a nice table. And he gave me the worst table. And it was right next to the kitchen. And I went, that's odd. So the next day I came up to him and I said, I would like the worst table you have. And I would like to wait as inordinately long as possible. And he looked at me, and there was this little smile, and he gave me the head table. And I walked up to him, and I said, I think I understand you. And he went, fuck 'em. Isn't that great?
Isn't that fabulous?
In other words, it was his rules. It's my restaurant, and I'll tell you where the fuck you're gonna sit. Sorry for my language. And it was a great thing, and I remember saying, remember this, because it's the secret. It's the secret of, it's why we like artists, it's why we like, because we feel confident, because they have fuck 'em. You know what I mean?
It's like when you go into those auditions. You've been into auditions. What was the one about you driving the car?
Oh, for Mr. Mom. They said, now you have to sit in a thing, you have to sit in, but I've had the other way too. You know, you have to sit and pretend you're driving. I said, I know how to drive. I'm gonna go sit on this sofa and I'm gonna read the lines, okay? And they looked at each other and I was cast because I brought a confidence in the room. But that's not like my other audition. My first audition in New York was for the casting director, famous casting director. And I came in with my photos and my resume just hot off the mimeograph machine. And she...
Was it Shirley Rich?
No, it wasn't Shirley, but I can't remember her name. And she said, I said, I'm here to read for the husband. She goes, you're here to read for the waiter. And I said, no, sorry. I'm here to read for the husband. Because you're here to read for the waiter. And I said, and she said, do you know what a casting director is? And I said, yeah, not having an idea of what casting. And she goes, I'm the casting director. I'll tell you what role to read, and what I say usually they do. And the line was more ice. And I went, and she said, action. I went, more ice? And she went, Jeffrey, it's 2 words. And I went, more ice? And she went, well, now it's starting to sound a little stilted. I went, more ice? And it got further and further. By the time I was through, I was screaming, more ice? I had sweat coming down, sweat underneath my things, salt stains, sweat going back. My eyebrows were furrowed. And she said, fine, thank you very much. I got to the door. I turned and I said, I just had these done. Would you like me to leave a photo and a resume? And she said, if you must. I got on the F train. I went back to Dean Street in Brooklyn and I cried for 2 days.
No.
Yeah.
It's just a killer. Talk about Eyes on You.
What's with the talk about? I actually, my teacher, my acting teacher, the great renowned Milton Katselas, we were having dinner one night and I said, something's wrong. And I said, I just feel tight. I feel just tight. And he said, what's going on? I don't know. And he said, the eyes are on you.
Right.
And when the eyes get on you, it's when things start to shrink. You know, you lose that sense of playfulness. When people start to tell you, oh, you're good, or oh, blah, 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 or you start to get, I tell you, and I've never talked about this. When someone pays you $1,000 to knock on a door and say, hello, you know, to knock on a door and say hi is one thing. When someone goes, here's $1,000, you go, hello? It's crazy.
It is.
It is nuts.
Absolutely.
And it was a very odd thing that I had to. What, are you getting mail now? Go on. Is that how long we've been here? We've been here so long, we're getting mail. Ask a question.
No, not yet. No, finish that. No, no, that's just the signal to let me know that we're going to have to ask the questions in a minute.
Oh, what was I talking about?
You were talking about the eyes on you.
Oh, so the eyes get on
and
you.
the $1,000.
You just get tighter. That's all. And you've had that. You know what that is.
I absolutely
And it drives you crazy.
But you said it to somebody on the set when we were doing the season this year. Somebody who was worried about something, and I don't even remember who it was. And you said, oh, it's because the eyes are on you now. Huh. And they were worried, concerned, and you said, and you explained what that meant.
I talked in the book about Mrs. Cohen, fear. And I call her old Mrs. Cohen. Mrs. Cohen, she lives in the back. And I talk about fear and my fear. And Mrs. Cohen, did you see how Nasser took over the Suez? See, how could I see? I live in the back. That's Mrs. Cohen. And I talk about I talk about my fear and how my particular my fear and how it will stop you. Because as you get more successful, you think the fear goes, but it comes with you. The vultures come with you. They go, oh, I'm going to go to the Golden Globes and sit with you.
Right.
And we're going to sit on this shoulder and this shoulder. Stick direct. And you're going, how could I possibly win a Golden Globe? So,
and yet
yeah.
You did.
Ask me a question.
I will. I know, right? I want to know more about your experience. I mean, you've had these iconic roles, and I want to know more about Larry, because I know.
You want to know about when I did The Love Boat?
I do actually.
See, that's what, it's very funny because I've had this trifecta and everything like that, but I also want to know that every actor has to do The Love Boat.
Do you want to know who he starred with on The Love Boat?
Oh, you want to? Donald O'Connor, who was not happy, and this, get this. I come in and I go, that's Donald O'Connor. That's Donald O'Connor. And next to Donald O'Connor was a seal. So Donald O'Connor was not happy. And the seal was Sylvia the seal. As a note, I want you to know that Sylvia the seal got 3rd billing. I got 4th billing. And I went over to Mr. O'Connor and I said, you're the reason I'm in this business. And he went, great. That's exactly what he did. He wasn't happy, but he was with Sylvia the smelly seal. And I was so ashamed that I was doing Love Boat. But then I went, who's that? And I went to the AD, the assistant director. I said, do you know who that is? And he went, Gish Lillian. And I said, Gish Lillian is the reason there's a close-up in the moving pictures. That's Birth of a Nation, Gish Lillian. And so I went to her manager, and I said, may I sit next to Miss Gish? And he said, would you? Because no one knows who she is. And it was Lillian Gish on the Love Boat. And it was such a moment, because I went, this is the history of the world. And I sat with her, and she was ramrod straight. And she sat like this. And she was looking at the lights. And if anyone knew what lighting was all about, and the director of cinematography, who was called Ready, Ready, because he would go honk, honk, ready, ready, he was shaking because it was Lillian Gish. And I remember her coming out for the scene, and I remember her going, anyway, yes, Miss Gish. And it brought tears to my eyes, because this is the history, you see. And it's actually a favorite moment of mine, because there it is. There's the whole thing.
And so many people think that once you've made it, it's not like that. I mean, that's what's so great about all the stories in the book, is that you dispel so many myths, and you are so frank about yourself and who you are and all the things about you that are so human and flawed, and they are so funny, and you expose yourself in a way that I think is...
The thing about, that we were talking the other day, the thing that's really magical about what we get to do as actors is the dog dies and one grieves, and the life is less, and you only have memories. With actors, the dog dies, you grieve, and your acting gets better.
Yeah.
Because the paint is more vibrant. And that's the gift of what we get to do. We get to, there's the adage in acting, you're stuck with the character, but the character's also stuck with you.
Right.
So these moments that we have add to the paint. And I think I'm always grateful. And that's why I like that moment between action and cut, because you get to express all that.
And I think that all of the iconic characters that you've played have carried that with them. Hank, hey now, I mean, what's underneath, one of the things that I told you that I loved about the episode where Hank is asking for more money, a bigger salary, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's so powerful to me because I watched you, and I had the same experience as I had reading the book, which is, it was so funny and so painful and poignant at the same time. And you do that with every character you create. Same with Arrested Development. I mean, that is, a show where you came in as a day player, basically, and created two characters.
But that day player was an interesting thing, because that's fuck 'em. Because I was a day player, so I said, fuck 'em. You know what a day player is? You just come on for the day. Well, of course you know what a day player is. A day player.
They know what Stick Drek is.
And it's all, you just come on. And so but I remember just being free as a bird. And I remember always be a day player. You always be a day player, because as soon as you sign the name and they go like that, it's a different thing.
Right. So every one of those characters, and Maura in Transparent.
And they're all Jewish, by the way. No, they are.
But you said
I
every
have
character
just
you play
realized-
is Jewish.
Huh?
You've said every character you play.
Every character I play is Jewish because but I've just come to realize that. It's true, and we have just started, for some reason, you and I have started speaking Yiddish on the set. I don't
crazy.
even know Yiddish.
No. One day on the set, last year I think it was, he turned to me and he said, I don't even remember.
V'mach de pisk.
I said, that means shut your mouth.
Means shut your mouth. I went v'mach de pisk, and I went, I don't even know what I'm saying.
But it came from some.
Do you know that I was high at my bar mitzvah? It's true. I had such a thing. We had a book for our it was called, I Had a Time with Judaism. The book was called When the Jewish People Was Young. And I already went, when the Jewish people was young? I have a problem. Isn't it when the Jewish people were young? And they said, no, when the Jewish people was young. Read it. I went, I don't know. I think it's when the Jewish people were young. And then I had a Cantor Bornstein who would eat cottage cheese sandwiches every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And I would say, Baruchu asa. He'd go, no, Baruchu. And he would eat the cottage cheese. And these cottage cheese things would land on me. And I looked like one of those ceilings in the valley when I left. It was unbelievable, Cantor Bornstein. And so we got to the, July the 8th, we got to my bar mitzvah, and my mother said, she goes, look, your name's up in lights. And it said Jeffrey Tambor in those little tiny, and she said, are you nervous? And I said, of course I'm nervous. And she said, and there was a drug during those days called a Milltown, yeah? And that's Valium. And she gave me, my mother gave me a Milltown. When I opened the Torah, I was high as a kite. And so I started doing Baruchu es Adonai, and then I went into some Ella Fitzgerald sort of Jerry Lewis sort of scat. Hey, 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 life is high. Hey, I don't know what the fuck I was doing. And then I remember Saul White's eyes. Rabbi White was like, oh my God. And I remember the Torah, and the words were just going like that. And then I went and did my bar mitzvah speech, and people were weeping. I was making up shit. I was just like going, and you know,
Did your mother ever say anything to you?
no, what was she saying? She went, nice job, good. Good, I like your suit, it's nice. I was so screwed up when I was a bar mitzvah boy. Not only that, but I hated the feel of wool. So I put my pajamas, my flannel pajamas underneath my wool suit. So the bar mitzvah boy had a charcoal suit that looked like that something was very wrong from here down, and he was high as a kite. This was my entrance into Judaism.
But see, this is the thing that's kept you going, even when your father was so sick. And you tell that great story about your dad.
It is a story of, it taught me 2 lessons. One was about economy. I remember they loved him at the hospital, or as my dad said, the hotel. He would always call, are you coming to the hotel? Yes, I'm coming to the hotel. My mom at that time really had a reticence about going, and I would fly up. I was doing the ropers at the time, and I would fly up every weekend, and I would stay in the hotel. He would turn off the lights. He would turn off the lights in the room. He had leukemia, and he'd turn off the lights in the room, and I would sit there all weekend. And he would say, are you there? And I go, yes. And I would be in the dark. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything. He wouldn't have the TV. It was insane. And that's when I started drinking. I really started drinking during those times. Anyway, they said, finally, Barney, it's time to go home. And the nurses stood up, and one of his favorite nurses stood there, and as he walked, she said, "Bye, Barney." And it was as if she had done all 5 acts of Lear. It was unbelievable how powerful it was. We got home. My mom was going to play the scene of, oh, I'm going to be the adoring wife who's going to go like that, having the husband returning, the sick husband returning, going to his deathbed, and she was going to do that. We drove up. I got out of the car. He got out of the car. He had lost so much weight that when he got out of the car, his pants fell around his ankles. My mom is like this. She goes like that. I look at him. He looks at me. It was so much emotion that we started pounding the car with laughter. We were pounding. Now, this is grief, you understand. Grief played out exponentially. I mean, and it was, there was nothing else to do. And it was one of the biggest life lessons ever. It was amazing.
And such relief and
Such
release
yeah.
between the two of you.
Yeah.
And of course, a moment of intimacy that
Yeah.
you rarely had.
Yeah, but I mean, if there is a higher purpose, there's laughter in it.
Always.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I could stay here and talk to you forever.
can't.
I can't.
You can't.
Okay, so
We have to get these people home. Tell us how you lost your hair?
no, they don't want to know about that. There's some very interesting things here. Talk about failing. And is it important to fail?
No, absolutely. You have to fail. You have to. My kids, they do the Legos, and error is the way. You have to do it wrong. They are now, if there's any young kids, they are hiring on it. They're hiring on your ability. I heard of it. I actually talk about it in the book. There's a CEO who just says, if you are not willing to fail, and if you will not do it wrong, then you will be fired. You must do it wrong, and you must make errors. Errors, errors, errors. And it is not the way I was brought up. I was brought up, you must do it well, and you must do 100%. And failure is cherished, and it's part of the rehearsal process. And it's part of what we do. There is no failure. It's the next take.
Yeah.
And it is the key to the whole thing. And it's the new matrix. It's the new
paradigm.
It's the new paradigm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that you always say when you used to go to another set, they would say at the end of it, well, let's mess one up.
Yeah, there's a saying, okay, we got that, let's do the last take. Okay, this one is yours, do it badly. And that's our premise. That's how we start the day. We do it badly.
Right.
And you get to, it's such a relief, is it not?
It is such a relief.
Yeah.
It's not the being paid the $1,000 and you're banging on the table saying hello.
Yeah.
It is that kind of freedom.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of freedom that you...
It can go badly too, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember going in for Joel and Ethan Cohen, and they said, do you want to read the rabbi or do you want to read the lawyer first? And I said, I'll read the rabbi, and with the lawyer, you can do better. And I remember them, they almost broke their necks. They went like that because no one had ever talked to them like that. So, you know, it's always, you play your game.
Was that fuck 'em?
That's fuck 'em. Yeah. It's also stupid. Because you have not seen me in a Joel or Ethan Cohen film since. All I get to do is talk about it at the 92nd Street Y.
They might read the book.
Yeah, but that's your deal. I mean, you do it, you know? Yeah.
You've created 3 iconic TV characters. Was there a trick or a secret to developing each one of them?
Gosh, I don't know. You answer that. Was there? Is there? I don't think so.
I don't
You
think
just follow your heart and you go. Well, actually, we actually, Leslie, Joni, and I made a very difficult decision during that time. We were offered something very safe. Very, very, very
right,
safe.
right.
Very safe and with a lot of money. And we went, we're going this way. And this was Amazon streaming Mora.
That's
You
right.
understand? No, 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 no. There's no applause. I just went, we're going this way.
All right.
And you know, this is why God created a high diving board, I guess.
But-
I like that. And I am so proud of being on a streaming show and Amazon and people having to, and we have gone through our times.
Oh, yeah.
And I am a cisgender male playing Mora, and I'm still shaking. I still shake. I get in a bad mood on the set.
You say when you get frightened, you get cranky.
Cranky?
And
Cranky adjacent.
cranky. But what he always talks about is he says, I feel this responsibility on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Because of being a
But I
cis-
think you follow your heart. I think it was a big decision. A big decision because it was safe. And I remember somebody that said, you know, if you get this, you know, you can have a big house in Los Angeles. And I went, I live in New York. I don't particularly like Los Angeles.
We're both New Yorkers.
We're both New
I mean, we are New Yorkers.
You know, there's that wonderful, you know, today's garbage day, for instance. It can't get better, can it, in the early morning? There is something about it that I just love, you know, and I was at the theater the other night, and I went to see Hamilton, you know, and I have to tell you, I was watching these young actors. I have to say something. There are so many good actors in this world who are not famous and don't have a red carpet and don't have that these actors. And I was out in Los Angeles and I went to an equity waiver production of a thing called Citizen at the Mark Taper Forum, and I went, there's so many good actors. And you and I knew an actor, Bill McCarrigan, at the
Oh my
Milwaukee
God.
Repertory. There are actors all over in these repertory theater companies who live in the city, who have the library cards in the city, who vote in the city, their kids go to school in the city. They're not famous, but they're playing Tyrone in Long Day's Journey into Night, or they're playing Falstaff, and they are happy being these troubadours. And those are the true actors.
They are the
Yeah.
workers.
They are the workers.
They
Yeah.
really are.
Yeah.
And attention must be paid.
Absolutely.
You know, it's
absolutely.
really important, and I love that you said that, and I love that you see that.
Yeah.
But you were saying you went to the theater the other night.
Oh, we went to see Hamilton,
Yeah.
and there's a thing that happens when they darken the theater. It happened when I went to see your show, the Lucille Lortel, and there's that thing where the lights go to half, and then they go out, and I always tear up, because there's that thing of like, ah, yes, we will get through this. We'll get through the night. We're going to get through this, and we're going to keep talking to each other,
And we're gonna
gonna
take you
make it
someplace.
through. And theater is the salvation, and I do believe it is the art. It is live is it's ecstasy. It's the whole deal.
It really is.
Yeah,
But
and couldn't be more important than
at this particular
point.
point in our political lives,
Yeah.
or where we are at this particular
So
point.
talk about. Sorry.
But I wanted to say something about that because it's important that you know from our point of view that this energy exchange is what it is all about.
Oh, so I was
for us.
I was these Hamilton actors, and I remember I was sitting next to Essa Pertha.
Essa Pertha
that wonderful
Merkerson, yeah.
actress, and I turned to her and I said, "Could you do this twice a day, on Wednesday? Could you do this?" And I remember because these guys are rapping and they're magnificent, and they are bold, and they are like, fuck them. Talk about fuck. It's like, you think you know what a musical is? This is a musical.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's just like in your face. And you think you know what a casting is? This is casting. This is casting. This is America. And this is what it sounds like. You know, and it's amazing.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. No question about it. want to go back for a second because you're talking about that reminds me of when you were teaching at the LGBTQ Center in Los Angeles, and you brought in these transgender actors were brought to you, and you're talking about actors and you're talking about people, and you've been talking about how important it is to cast trans people in parts. And something happened to you when you taught that class.
I walked in, and usually I was very nervous. And they were sitting there, and we all stood up and introduced, and how do you want to be addressed? And I sort of talked about it. It was so moving to me, and I said, "Tell me about your life." So we did that exercise where and each one got up and did their story. Anyway, by 4 o'clock, I got in the car, and I drove around the block, just one block, and I just sat there, and I stared ahead. It must have been for a half hour. And I just said, my life has just changed. The stories and the talent in that room was unbelievable. And the willingness to share the story and the acting prowess was so magnificent that it was, and I did change after that. I did change. And I went, it's not about the red carpet. It's not about a trend. It's not about beauty. It's not about anything. It's not about forgive me, a reality show. It's about lives being lived authentically, desperately. And I remember this one young girl, Carol, who got up to talk. And I kept looking at her, and she would avert her eyes when I looked at her in the audience. When I teach, I keep the lights on because I like to watch the audience as well. And she got up, and she told about her life to come to my class, or to our class, she had to get up, evade her father, get in the car, change her clothes, and put on her wig, and come to acting class. And that piece of information just changed me. It was like, muck. You understand? And I went, and I think whatever I was as an actor and whatever I was doing as more just went like that. And I can't speak enough about that experience. And we did it again this year. And I want employment for those actors.
Right.
I want them to get jobs. I want them to get opportunities. I want them to get voices.
And when you say it's not a trend, it's not the trend of the moment. You're talking about people whose lives have been devastated because of our culture.
Right.
And when they come to be with you, they come to a person who has an understanding of what this space, this safety, this home, this freedom means, and you can pass that along to them.
I appreciate what you're saying. I believe I'm the student in the room, by the way. I think they're calling the shot. I really do.
Like your kids?
It's important to me. Pardon me?
Like your kids?
Yeah,
They're
I
the
mean, I think they're just. I think they're just. I'm the one who's learning exponentially, and I'm the one who's getting it. And it's. I think the world is changing. But I just want, before we get crazy about it, I just want to address a tweet that I got the other day, where someone said, "How can you let your grandkids and your grandchildren see you in this role?" So. Let's not get crazy. The hatred and the phobia is still going on, and I'm glad I got that tweet because I was starting to feel, oh boy, and it's there, it's still there.
So it's a wake-up call.
And when my little Evie came to the set, 10 years old, I went, oh gosh, and Kasha and I looked at each other. And I went, oh well, let me explain now. Maura, let's see, Daddy is going to And then Evie, 10 years old, Evie said, "Daddy, I understand your character is more comfortable being a woman." from the mouth of babes. You know?
Can you, as George Sr., give Trump some advice on how to build a wall? Hold on a second. There's another part to it.
Is that the question?
Yes, that's the question. Reference, that was a pseudo something development plot line, i.e. George faked building a wall.
I do remember the time. I remember who gets a job like this where they tried to bury George Sr. as Saddam, impersonating himself as Saddam Hussein. And they actually dug a hole and put me in the hole and then buried me. And I went, show business. Yeah, and there's some chatter going on that we may revisit Arrested very soon, but I can't. So maybe we'll have a voice about walls and such.
How to build walls. If you had to describe your experience playing Mora Mappa in one word, what would it be? And this is from Michelle and Ricky.
Why do you have to say Michelle and Ricky?
Because it says from Michelle and Ricky.
You don't have to say who it's from.
Oh, okay.
Michelle, where are you? One word. The word that came in was author. Isn't that weird?
Really?
But it's kind of right because you're the author of your own life. And Maura has decided to be the author of her own life. And at 70 years old, she's the one in the family who makes a break for freedom, which I find very interesting. And I love that she's 70, and she's the one who breaks. I love that.
And you know, it's so fascinating to me about that. People have said, you know, from different aspects
Do you
of our
think it's
business.
fair that you have a better voice than I do? Do you do voiceovers?
No, I can't get them.
Really?
No, really.
You have to change your reps.
Do you think so?
Doesn't she have a great voice?
Thanks, honey.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
One of the kindest, most nicest, sweetest people, even though she left me on stage 40 years ago.
Oh, that is
It's
not
true. It's
true.
true.
That
She
is
didn't say her
no,
cue.
no. He tells the story in the book, and he says that I have to write a book to refute this.
Yeah.
It's not true.
She left me on
no,
stage,
I didn't.
and then when I went to her dressing room, she goes, "Well, I just didn't believe you." Go ahead, write your book
okay,
now.
honey. Okay.
But the
But I had then I wrote a musical that was terrible for
and you because I was so fat, you made me pregnant
Yes.
in the show.
That was true. She was 50 pounds heavier.
And so he made me pregnant in the show.
Yes.
It was a really cute musical. Not everybody at the theater thought so, but that's another
story.
That's another story.
Talk about.
What does You know, I never will live that down. You understand that when we go back to the 5th season, he's going to say, the first thing he's going to say to me when he sees me is, talk about. Okay, what does Maura mean to you, and what has she taught you most of all?
Taught me, has given me great courage. She teaches me every day. Teaches me about aloneness, teaches me about humility, courage. I think, Jeffrey, she's made me a better parent. Honestly, I think she has raised the bar on what I have to do. I don't know if she's made me a better actor, but I think she has raised the bar on what I have to do as an actor. I think she has raised my responsibility on earth in this time left for me, and made me terribly grateful. I don't know why she's come along. But the chapter is waiting for Maura, and it's like I have been waiting for this friend because I think she's smarter than I am. I think she's funnier than I am. I think she's more courageous than I am. And so I said, well, I'll just follow her. It's almost like she came along as I remember the first time I made up as her in room 609 at the Fairmont Hotel. And I remember as I made up, she kept averting her eyes. She wouldn't look at me in the mirror. And then I kept saying, well, she's really pretty, and she's really pretty, and she's nice, and then she smiled. And we sort of settled back and looked at each other and sort of said, well, that's the way that's going to look. And that's kind of pretty, and that's kind of that kind of hurts, but it's a nice ear thing. And it was like a friend came along, and we kept averting our eyes and kept smiling and kept flirting with one another. And my new friend came to earth, and it was nice. This is Maura. I always wear this as a pinky finger, and this always reminds me of Maura, and I use it very much. And the odd thing is that Maura goes like this as her gesture. And my mother, that was her gesture. And I didn't realize it till I saw the show. But my mother always went like this. And Maura does that. So this is why in geometry and in life there's a circle, you see? And no matter what you do, you'll always come around. You just have to faith. You have to always come around. It's you. I recognize your voice, Mr. Adler. This man is Jerry Adler. He's an actor, and we can't say too much. Don't give it away. You can't give it away what you're doing.
No.
Louder.
To describe a moment of absolute genius that playing his father on Transparency. Am I allowed to talk about the episode?
I don't think people can hear you. That's the only problem.
Jer, stand up.
Best line of the night. That's the best line of the night. It's the best moment of the night. It's the best moment in my life. Jerry, stand up. I am standing.
That's like the medic on the day of the show. I will never be asked back here ever again. Oh my God. Okay.
He comes to Israel because I'm living in Israel, and he recognizes me. We haven't seen each other in like 20 years, 30 years. And in the show, the end of the show.
Should we stop him? He's about to give away the season.
Oh.
Jerry, you can't say what you're about to say because you're going to give away the season. You can't say what you're about to say.
Oh, no.
Sit down. Sit down. Give him applause. Thank you.
The only thing you can talk about is how great it was, all the wonderful things you said about how great it was for you to work on
But you can't talk about the plot because
No.
we're going to get in big trouble, and then we won't be asked back.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God. Yeah.
And we do it a couple of times, the director, that's wonderful, it's great. And he kept saying, it's almost over.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
And he said, let's do one more take. And as he walks away from me, he says, don't hug me. So we do the scene again, and we're at this moment, and he puts his arms around me, and I'm standing there, and I don't hug him. And in that moment, without the dialogue, without anything, he has forgiven me, and I have, and I'm lost in his guilt, and it was a perfect moment, and it was not a disgrace.
Thank you. What Jerry just said was that we had a moment, and I also said, thank you, Jerry. I just didn't want you to give away the plot, because then we would have gotten, But what we did was, I remember saying to you, don't look me in the eyes. And in that disconnection, there was ultimate connection. Because actors look at each other in the eyes, but people, because of their guilt, can't. And that got both of us. It shook me too. We were both, you know, and you're going to get the Emmy.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to watch season
Yeah.
4 because it's incredibly
Yeah.
gorgeous. And
August, I think. August.
September.
Like I say, September.
Yes. But those of us watching that were also
Shook. Yeah.
really shook up.
Yeah.
Really, really
Thanks,
shook
Jared.
up, and it was something else.
We got to let these people go.
Oh, do we have to go? Is it time?
Yeah.
Do we have to say goodbye? Okay. Good. Never mind. Fuck them. After all these years in the business, what's the one thing you know?
There was my teacher, Milton. His teacher was a guy named James Leo Herlihy, who wrote Midnight Cowboy, was a great author. And he had a phrase, and it was, adore everything.
Oh.
And I say that now to everybody because we just wait to adore everything. And, you know, we don't realize the bad, you know. I don't know why this just came across my brain, but, you know, those reviews that you get. My Caliban in Detroit was called A Beaded Bag Gone Wrong. And I remember crying, but I you know, and all those things, but adore everything, everything.
It's the best
Everything.
advice that you
Isn't it beautiful?
ever?
And the word adore is quite beautiful. It's quite beautiful. And I try to achieve that, but I don't always.
Well, you said something before about the time you have left. If you leave me, I'll kill you. And the other, you're not go, you can't go anywhere.
No.
And the place that you have reached is not the end of anything. This is the continuation of something quite extraordinary. And what I was going to say before is that you love that Maura is 70 years old. And I love that people are responding to the age and to the interest of a life that has gone on for so long and how much value there is in that.
There was a student who came, I think she drove 4 hours to class. And she was a CEO, trans woman, CEO, head of a company, and she got up. She was the very last monologue in the first season. And I was sitting there, and she stood up and did her monologue, and I was looking at Maura. I was literally looking at her, and I went, oh my God, that's her. And she was successful, and she was older, and she was beautiful. And I'm trying, that's the purview that is very interesting to me, because Maura walks into the LGBT center, she still doesn't belong. Because these are kids, you know, running around. And she has to find she's still trying to find where, you know, who can I trust? Who can I be with? Who are my friends? Where's my group? And I find that very, very exciting. I find that very interesting. You know, the very same trouble I have playing Maura has playing Maura. And it's the fail-safe. Maura doesn't know how to make up yet. Do you believe that this actor was so naive that I thought, well, you'd make yourself up? I didn't know that it takes years to learn this. So now I'm the schmendrick in a grocery store who goes, by the way, I go up to people and go, do you mind if I take a picture of your color? I become a zealot of makeup, you know, and the learning on this has been amazing.
And what I was going to say to you, because I've known Jeffrey for over 40 years, I see the difference in you. And there is this woman that has been integrated into you, that has deepened you, and that the gender fluidity with which you work on this character has changed
Yeah.
you, and I think has made a mark in this world in a way that could not have been done by anybody
Well,
else.
thank you. I think that in all due respect, when people ask me, what was the biggest change, I, like everyone, thought that the change, well, no, I really didn't, but the questions on people were, what's the, were you okay with the wig, with the thing, with the bop, with the boo? And I went, I had no problem with that. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. Or Marie Schley would say, what do you like? At my first costume fitting, I went, I have no idea what I like. But neither does Maura. But what I found was, it's within. It's whatever's going to be the change is going to be interior. And what I've said is, I have finally been given the chance. You talk about, the gender fluidity, but I think it is, I have been given a chance to be all of Jeffrey rather than just playing a part of Jeffrey that is acceptable. But all of Jeffrey now works.
Yeah.
And we all have all of us.
That's right.
But I get to do it. And what happens as I leave the set, you don't leave Maura.
No.
You do get out of the clothes and you get on your cisgender clothes, but you don't leave Maura in the dressing room. It's just, she can't be left.
She's always with you.
She comes with.
Yeah. Just one last thing, and I know we have to let these lovely people go home. In the beginning of the book, you write these very funny letters
Yeah.
to all your different representatives,
Yes.
your people, your book people, your...
Yes.
And you say, thanks so much, but no thanks, I'm not writing a book.
Yeah.
That's lovely of you, my wonderful agent, Leslie Siebert. No,
Right.
I'm not writing a book. No,
Right.
Crown, thank you for sending me all these books, I'm not
The head
writing a
of
book.
Crown is here tonight, by the way.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not writing a book. Joe Veltri from the Gersh Agency, book agent, thank
And
you.
they kept sending me books.
Right.
I have memoirs up my tuchus. I have more memoirs in my house than anybody living. Because they said, look who can write memoirs,
And you said,
I said, well, I read Bruce Springsteen's, I read Tina's, I read Amy's, I read Lithgow's, I read them all, and I can't. I said, those are faux letters, by the way. Do you know that? They're not
No.
real letters.
oh my God, they're
That's
so...
my preface. I have grown up around books and authors all my life. I'm a co-owner of a bookstore in Los Angeles, the Skylight Books. I've been an owner of a bookstore for 25 years. It's been a lifelong. On May 25th, I will be reading my book in my bookshop. It is talk about bucket list.
Right.
So anyhow, what the point I'm saying is that was my entrance, because I'm not a writer. I talk and we put it together. But, I have such an awe of writers, and I have such a respect for writers. I grew up, a bookstore changed my life at Wayne State. This book guy who would just give me, the Hemingway, who would give me the Heller, who would give me
And he would sit down with you and
he would
talk
sit down
about
with me at the end. He would have his glass of ouzo. We'd close it, and we would talk about books. I still don't know his name. I have no idea, and it's sort of magical what happened.
It was almost as though he wasn't real.
He gave me Ernest Hemingway's A Movable Feast, and it changed my life. And it would be funny, because he would, at the cash register, he'd just shove these books, and I'd look at them, and they'd be Shaw's letters. Shaw's letters? And I would take a moment, I was glued. Or he introduced me to Vonnegut, for God's sakes.
Really?
And Catch-22, which changed my life. I went, you mean you can change people's thinking by satire? You can get them that way? What was your question?
What changed your mind in order to write this book?
I have a friend, Elizabeth, and she changed my mind. And then there were people. This chapter I have called Attaboy. People who go ahead, it's good. It's good. I have this thing called attaboy. My son Gabriel went out on the playing field. My son is arguably the worst lacrosse player in the United States of America. He doesn't know what he's doing. But I went up to the coach and I went, he's not the fastest. He's not the greatest, okay? And I'm worried. He went, Gabriel goes out. Attaboy, Gabriel. Attaboy. Atta go. Attaway, Gabriel. Gabriel comes over during the thing. Gabriel gets better and better and better and better and better. Attaboy. Attaboy is so important. Parents, praise your kids. Don't worry about going overboard. At my dad's funeral, one by one, they would come up and say, you know, your dad was very proud of you. Hey, you know, Barney really was proud of you. When I went down to his office to take out his trophies after he passed away, my dad had wall-to-wall clippings of me. Me. I didn't know that. My thing is, say it. Say it loudly. You can't err in that. Praise them. And so it's people like Elizabeth and people like Tricia from Crown and people like Leslie and Joni, just keep going. It's great. Keep going. And I drove them crazy. I stopped so many times. I went crazy. Joe Veltri, I'm surprised he answered his phone. I can't do this. I'm not big. And finally,
Yeah.
here it is. And I get to go every Friday. We'll end with this. Every Friday, when I was a young actor in New York, I would go to, they don't want me to say the name of the store, 57th Street and 5th Avenue. Double day. And I would go and buy a paperback book because I made it through the week. And that's my belief. And that's what got this book written. Thank you.